says he's reached an agreement on an alternate version of the Build Back Better bill with Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer.
The Senate passes a bill to address a semiconductor shortage in the U.S. and reduce reliance on China. But some lawmakers say the bill is too weak and could open the U.S. to CCP espionage and intellectual property theft. We take a deeper look.
American voters dissatisfied with current parties in Washington will soon have another option. A third party is being announced today, but will they make a splash?
Remnants of a massive Chinese rocket are expected to streak through the atmosphere this weekend in an uncontrolled re-entry. Experts aren't sure how much of the rocket will survive or where it's expected to crash land. Good morning. Welcome to NTD. I'm Kevin Hogan.
Good morning, and I'm Evelyn Lee. Thanks for joining us today. It's July 28th, a Thursday, and we start off the day with updates from Capitol Hill this morning. Yesterday, Democratic Senator JoeManchin said he has reached a deal with Senate Democratic Leader Chuck Schumer. The agreement is on a bill to increase corporate taxes, reduce the national debt, invest in energy technologies, and lower the cost of prescription drugs. This is a sudden reversal that was quite shocking on Capitol Hill. Manchin has been the only roadblock to Biden's big policy goals, especially those in this bill. 2 weeks ago, Manchin was still withholding his support because of concerns over more government spending. With the Senate split 50-50 and Republicans resoundingly opposing the spending bill, Democrats need unanimous support to pass it. Manchin was one of the key holdouts. And we're bringing in Melina Weisskopf, our Washington, D.C. correspondent, to give us some more insight. Good morning, Melina.
Good morning, Evelyn. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. Melina, could you briefly lay out what's in this newly agreed-upon package?
Yeah, Evelyn. So we can kind of think of this as a smaller, scaled-back version of Build Back Better, but with a new name. So it's called the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. This is kind of how Democrats have been pushing the Build Back Better bill as an inflation-fighting measure. Of course, the majority of Republicans, all Republicans, were not buying this. They were kind of honing in on the fact that how could a spending bill possibly reduce the deficit? So what's changed in this bill versus the Build Back Better bill, a lot of the social welfare programs are now gone, but there's still a large portion of investments in clean energy. So hundreds of billions of dollars will go into tax credits for electric vehicles, for producing solar panels and wind turbines here in the U.S. So that's a large piece of the bill. There are also healthcare provisions in here. They want to expand Obamacare subsidies through 2025, as well as cap the price of pharmacy drugs for seniors and those with disabilities to $2,000 per year. So that's a large portion of what's in this bill.
Right, and it took Senator Manchin 1 year to change his position on this. So what is it that helped change his mind?
I really think the rebranding is what changed his mind here. Of course, Democrats are slipping in the polls, but we have to remember that Senator JoeManchin isn't up for re-election until 2025. So he's not really pressured to take any action to have a win here, but he may be trying to help his Democrat colleagues kind of win this midterm election that we'll see here in November. I also think that the fact that they're raising corporate taxes is also another factor. So 15%, they're raising the corporate tax to 15% in hopes of generating revenue. So that could be another reason, because Senator Manchin is also a supporter of making big corporations, quote unquote, pay their fair share. So those are some factors.
I see. And any idea when we could see this pass through Congress?
Well, it's a little bit of a process here. I would expect before the end of the month. So the Senate parliamentarian, that is the Senate Rules Advisor, is now looking over this new reformed legislative text. And once she gives the okay for this, we can expect to see the Senate quickly pass this because all 50 senators are on board now, now that Manchin has given his okay. And House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says that she's planning to actually bring members back from recess early in August to pass it through the House as well. So I would expect to see it off to the White House by the end of August, Evelyn.
Interesting. Thank you, Melina Weisskopf. I appreciate you getting up early with us today.
Of course. Thank you.
And in more political news, the Senate passed the Chips and Sciences bill on Wednesday. The bill will encourage semiconductor companies to build chip plants in the U.S. NTD reporter Jeremy Sandberg has more details.
The House of Representatives plans to vote on the bill Thursday. If approved, it could be signed into law by the president early next week.
This is a bad day for President Xi and the Chinese Communist Party.
Passing in the Senate with bipartisan support and a vote of 64 to 33, the legislation is not without its critics.
There's no return. There's no standard for return for American taxpayers. So this is not a anti-China bill. This is not a national security bill. This is just a free giveaway to a bunch of billion-dollar corporations that wanted no accountability.
The bill aims to address a chip shortage in the U.S. and reduce reliance on China. It will provide around $280 billion in funding, including federal grants and tax breaks for companies that construct their chip facilities in the U.S. It also directs Congress to increase spending on high-tech research programs that lawmakers say will help the country stay economically competitive in the decades ahead.
By passing this Chips and Science bill, we are making clear that we believe America's best days are yet to come.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer stripped a provision from the bill that would have blocked companies from outsourcing manufacturing to China for semiconductor technologies researched and developed with taxpayer money. Opponents of the bill say it's too weak on China and could open the U.S. to espionage and intellectual property theft from the Chinese Communist Party. Republican Senator Marco Rubio says his amendments to the bill that would have ensured funded companies didn't work with China were blocked by Senate Democrats. He wrote in a press release, "No one should be surprised when we hear stories of Beijing stealing U.S. technology funded by this bill, or companies producing more chips in China, even as they receive money from the taxpayers." Other senators from both sides of the aisle say the bill will increase inflation and hurt American taxpayers. It is projected to increase federal deficits by about $79 billion over 10 years. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
American voters unsatisfied with the current two-party system will soon have another option. Former Republican and Democratic officials are announcing a new third political party today. The new party is called Forward. It will be co-chaired by former Democratic presidential candidate Andrew Yang and former Republican governor of New Jersey, Christine Todd Whitman. Party leaders are holding events in 24 cities this fall to roll out the new platform and get support. The new party is a merger of three political groups: the Renew America Movement, the Forward Party, and the Serve America Movement. The party hopes to recruit current and Republican and Democratic members of Congress. Forward aims to gain party registration and ballot access in 30 states by the end of 2023 and in all 50 states by late 2024, in time for the presidential and congressional elections. The official launch will be in Houston, Texas on September 24th.
And the suspect in the Chicago Independence Day parade shooting was indicted by a grand jury yesterday. The 21-year-old man faces 117 felony counts. Charges include 21 first-degree murder counts, 48 counts of attempted murder, and 48 counts of aggravated battery. 7 people were killed and over 30 wounded in the shooting. Authorities say the wounded range in age from 8 to their 80s. An 8-year-old boy was paralyzed from the waist down when his spine was severed that day by a bullet. Prosecutors say the man admitted to the shooting when he was arrested after a long search on July 4th.
A House investigation found AR-15 style gun sales brought in more than $1 billion over the last 10 years. The committee hearing looked at the marketing and sales of firearms, questioning executives from gun manufacturers. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg reports.
The committee focused its investigation on 5 major gun makers.
Our investigation shows that 5 major gun manufacturers collected a total of more than $1 billion from the sale of assault rifles over the last decade.
Representative Carolyn Maloney, chairwoman of the House Committee on Oversight and Reform, says the investigation found gun manufacturers use dangerous marketing tactics, like marketing to children and young men as a way to prove their masculinity.
None of those companies take even basic steps to monitor the deaths and injuries caused by their products. This is beyond irresponsible.
She called the AR-15 the weapon of choice for mass murderers and asked the companies to accept responsibility for recent shootings. Executives from the companies disagreed.
Blame the firearm as an inanimate object.
These acts are committed by murderers. The murderers are responsible.
The committee found 2 gun manufacturers have tripled their revenues in the past 3 years. During that time, there were many riots, like those in 20 states across the U.S. after the death of George Floyd. According to a report by Axios, total insured property losses incurred during the George Floyd riots come in at $1 billion to $2 billion. That figure only represents properties that were insured. Representative James Comer, a ranking member of the committee, says he will continue to protect the rights of law-abiding gun owners.
Ironically, cities with the worst crime rates are the hardest place to buy guns. Years of gun control laws in cities like New York and Chicago have failed.
He says it's become clear that Democrats and Republicans have very different solutions when it comes to ending violent crime across the nation.
Republicans want to target criminals. Democrats want to target lawful gun owners and take away their guns.
Gun sales spiked during the coronavirus pandemic, with first-time gun buyers making up more than a fifth of those that bought guns.
My colleagues seem to forget that the American people have a right to own guns. It's a constitutional right to defend themselves.
About 8.5 million people bought guns for the first time in 2020. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
Meta is planning to make some big changes to Facebook and Instagram. Basically, they will increase the number of posts that you see from people that you don't follow. That content will be curated by artificial intelligence. Now, many big names on the platforms are complaining that their feeds are full of irrelevant content already. Meta is chasing TikTok's success with short-form videos, but there are many concerns surrounding TikTok, partially because of dangerous content that's being suggested to its users. Just recently, 2 parents sued the platform after their daughters died. They were taking part in a challenge that went viral called the Blackout Challenge. Joining me is Professor Andrew Selepak. He's a social media professor at the University of Florida. It's good to see you.
You too.
So I want to begin by speaking about the Blackout Challenge. That's a challenge that's viral right now on TikTok, and it's essentially just choking yourself until you pass out. Now that sounds just plain dangerous. So how is it that TikTok can convince people that this is a good idea?
You know, you can look back on the videos that have been posted to TikTok over the years. I mean, going back to the Milk Crate Challenge or the Tide Pod Challenge, a lot of it is just allowing videos of young people doing stupid things. And this then convinces other young people to mimic what they see for views, for likes, for followers. And they're sort of cashing in on their health for something that they get no tangible return for.
Right, and here's a question that is also floating around out there. So is it TikTok's fault when kids are making those dangerous videos? What do you think?
Well, I think what we're looking at is just an across the board problem with content moderation for social media. You know, the platforms are basically allowed to decide what they want to moderate, what they don't want to moderate. They could decide to not allow certain content and then have it removed. Now, it's difficult to moderate 1 billion users when we're talking about different languages, different cultures, and all of that video content, which isn't as easy to moderate as text. And TikTok being a very visually based platform, it would be difficult to moderate the 1 billion users. But we've seen how Facebook or Instagram can moderate no nudity. And they're able to eliminate nudity on that platform. So it's possible to moderate 1 billion, 2 billion, 2.5 billion users. It's just whether or not the platform wants to spend the time and effort to do it.
I see. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to know that it's technically possible. And I mean, people are routinely spending hours and hours on social media, and we don't really think much about it. So what is it that you think parents and children, generally people that spend time on social media, need to be conscious of while on those platforms?
Well, I mean, you kind of mentioned it right there. We spend hours and hours on these platforms. We spend on average more than 2 hours a day on social media. And that is sort of spending time with digital friends. but not spending time in the real world with those friends. And I'll be honest, I'm a huge proponent of social media. I believe in the tremendous value of social media, but it's really dependent on the user as to how you use that time on social media.
Right, and you say, of course, we have a lot of advantages that we can take advantage of it. But I'm asking you, in light of all these lawsuits, also right now, has it turned around at some point? Are we the ones now being taken advantage of by those social media companies?
Well, to a large extent, we have, for quite some time, ever since really, it's been almost a decade now. It's been over a decade that Facebook kind of introduced the news feed. And what that did ever since, going back more than a decade, is that it's changed how we use these platforms. It's no longer intentional. Now it's whatever the platform feeds us to keep our addiction, to keep us viewing, and it feeds us what it thinks we want. And TikTok, I think most people would agree, is probably the best at their algorithm of literally feeding you content that's going to keep you on the platform for a long time. And it takes you down the rabbit hole of that content to where, to an extent, it just becomes sort of more and more extreme of whatever that is, because it's trying to keep you on the platform. And from that perspective, what we're looking at is an addictive platform that often there's going to be negative messages on there. And knowing how addictive they are, yes, you could have more government regulation, but at the same time, you also need the ability to kind of self-regulate.
Okay, I see. Yeah. Thank you very much, Professor Andrew Selepak. Some very interesting insights that we should all think about. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, he did emphasize that a lot of it comes down to personal responsibility in the end, but depending on whether we interact with friends, learn things, or if we just look at harmful content, it can either be a great tool to take advantage of or potentially lead to serious mental health issues.
And in other news, a police chase broke out in Riverside, California on Monday. A 32-year-old man from Nevada broke into 2 homes and then stole an Amazon delivery truck. Police tracked the truck with GPS and entered into the wild chase. The thief tried jumping a median strip before driving into oncoming traffic. He narrowly missed at a car at an intersection, then slammed into the back of a stationary car. The driver crashed into 3 more cars before ditching the van and running across the freeway. Police arrested the man as he was trying to climb a barrier wall. His charges could include attempted murder, home invasion, carjacking, assault with a deadly weapon, reckless evading of police, and DUI. His bail is set at $1 million. No serious injuries were reported.
With California's wildfire season becoming longer and more severe each year, the state's firefighters face an arduous and uphill battle. Let's take a look.
Some days are harder than others. Some days you're exhausted, especially days where you're working throughout the night on that 24-hour shift and you have no sleep. But yeah, it depends on what your actions are that day, how drained you are energy-wise. But it's not easy, for sure. It's not for the faint-hearted.
Jared Abbott is a fire captain with the Woodside Fire Protection District. He oversees 3 other firefighters battling the Oak Fire in California's Mariposa County. The blaze is so far the summer's largest. In less than a week, it torched an area half the size of San Francisco and had destroyed 25 homes. But the firefighters' 24-hour shifts seemed to be doing the trick. By Tuesday morning, the fire was 26% contained. Abbott is no stranger to this sort of work, but the work seems to get harder every season.
So I've been a professional firefighter for 10 years. Really, I would say since I've started, it's been, every season's worse than the one before it. So it's been busy. I'm usually out 3 14-day assignments a year, and they're long summers.
The past 7 years have seen 15 of the 20 most destructive fires in California history, measured by loss of life and structures. For Abbott, the hardest part is what he leaves behind to do his job.
I have 2 young kids. I have a 5-year-old son and a 2-year-old daughter. And they're so young, they don't, understand why I'm gone.
But Abbott's family, at least, is safe from the flames. These residents of Mariposa County had to flee, finding food at this Red Cross shelter. David Wagner is a Red Cross volunteer.
Most of them didn't have a lot of time to evacuate. Some of their stories are that they saw the flames heading down the hill towards their homes, and they just threw what they could very quickly into their cars.
Many, including 12-year-old Marley Bernard, came here.
Like, they have good food. We've been getting fed 3 times a day, and they've been giving us cold water, cold drinks, and we've been sleeping in the car, and we finally slept in a tent last night because it's been kind of uncomfortable when we were sleeping in the car.
This is my street right here.
Sally McClalla is 82 and had been through this before.
Well, it's very upsetting. I was nervous the first go-round 4 years ago, and I broke out crying and had terrible shakes. I couldn't hardly stop crying for a long time. This time I felt I'm a trooper. I've been there. I've done it before. I want to just keep my head about me, and I'm prepared.
Just ahead, the Israeli military releases footage showing weapons production sites in densely populated civilian areas of Gaza. Israel accuses radical Islamists of deliberately placing them there. And another Chinese rocket body is expected to fall uncontrolled from space this weekend. What risk does it pose to people on Earth? That and more after the break.
The United States has made a substantial offer to Russia to release U.S. citizens detained there. The deal aims at bringing home WNBA star Brittany Griner and another jailed American, Paul Whelan. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says he expects to speak with his Kremlin counterpart for the first time since before Russia invaded Ukraine.
We put a substantial proposal on the table weeks ago to facilitate their release. Our governments have communicated repeatedly and directly on that proposal. And I'll use the conversation to follow up personally and, I hope, move us toward a resolution. I think you can expect to hear me in the weeks and months ahead speak more to the efforts that we're making to reinforce this global norm against arbitrary detention to deter countries from doing this in the first place.
The statement marks the first time the U.S. government has publicly revealed any concrete action to secure the release of Griner. Griner was arrested on drug-related charges at a Moscow airport in February and testified Wednesday at her trial. She faces up to 10 years in Russian prison if convicted. Blinken did not offer details on the proposed deal, which was offered weeks ago. Media reports suggest Moscow is interested in exchanging the basketball star for convicted Russian arms dealer Viktor Bout. It is unclear if it will be enough for Russia to release the Americans. Blinken says Washington would like a response from Moscow.
Israel published images of weapons depots and tunnels in Gaza. It accused the Palestinian militant group Hamas of deliberately hiding them in civilian areas. Military drone footage and coordinates show tunnels and weapons production sites in densely populated civilian areas. Here's NTD's Cost Temenes with more on this.
Images published Wednesday show weapons depots and tunnels in Gaza near a school, a Pepsi factory, and other civilian buildings. Other sites include a UN-run school, a medical clinic, a library, and mosques. The Israeli military accuses Hamas, the radical Islamist group that governs the Gaza Strip, of hiding them in densely populated areas.
We have revealed with evidence and can prove that military sites for the Hamas terrorist group are inside the civilian areas in Gaza, close to mosques, schools, and hospitals, adding that they built terrorist tunnels under the civilian neighborhoods, exposing the innocents to danger.
Hamas rejected the statement. Gaza is an area where some 2.3 million people live on a patch of 140 square miles. It has been a constant point of conflict since Hamas took control of the area in 2007. Israel has fought 5 conflicts with Gaza since 2009. The most recent was an 11-day war in May 2021, killing over 250 Palestinians, 13 Israelis, and wounding thousands. Israeli military officials say Israel had a joint strategy of supporting economic opportunities for Gazans, including work permits allowing several thousand to work in Israel, while maintaining strict military readiness to intervene. Jimenez, NTD News.
Remnants of a massive Chinese rocket are expected to fall uncontrolled from space as soon as this weekend. Beijing says it's closely tracking the rocket and it poses little risk to anyone on Earth.
The debris could fall as early as July 31st. The Long March 5B rocket blasted off last Sunday as one of the final missions to complete China's orbiting space station by year's end. The 10-story, 22-ton rocket body will break up as it falls through the atmosphere. But it is large enough that numerous chunks will likely survive the fiery re-entry. Experts aren't sure how much of the rocket will get through and where it's expected to crash land. They say it will be possible to narrow the potential impact zone in the days ahead. This is the 3rd time China has decided not to control the disposal of a rocket body. In both 2020 and 2021, China was responsible for similar uncontrolled falls. In 2020, pieces of the space junk fell on the Ivory Coast, causing no injuries but damaging several buildings. Experts say the chance of someone being injured or killed from falling rocket chunks is quite small. To date, there have been no known cases of personal injury caused by falling human-made space junk. But many experts believe China is taking unnecessary risks by disposing the rocket in this way.
And according to a map shared to Twitter by the Aerospace Corporation, major cities like New York, Los Angeles, Cairo, Sydney, Australia, and many eastern Canadian cities all fall within the expected touchdown area, although it's too soon to tell if they could be a threat. And coming up next, brace yourself for cuteness overload. A Canadian farm boy and his endearing friendship with a unique guard animal called Snickers. And a 170-carat pink diamond discovered in Angola may be the largest such gemstone found in 300 years. We'll be right back with that.
In every country communism gains power, authoritarianism and death followed in its wake. Communism promises a world without suffering, and yet, in its execution, does the exact opposite. Following Lenin's death, Stalin's 29-year reign killed an estimated 60 to 66 million people. More famines and purges would occur. The very peasants that communism was supposed to benefit instead starved to death under its rule. The party dictates what is right and wrong. Mao ended up killing between 50 million and 70 million people. As an investigative journalist, I want to understand why.
Welcome back. When a family farm brought in a new guard animal to protect their alpacas, they didn't realize it had plans to adopt their toddler. We take a look at the dynamic duo.
Hey everybody! Hey everybody!
Meet the Copperts. They live on Cloud 9 Acres, an alpaca farm in Ontario, Canada. After one of their 6 alpacas got attacked by a neighbor's dog, Brandon and Damaris Coppert knew it was time to bring in a guard animal. An unusual guard animal.
We met him and we fell in love with him, and the rest is kind of history.
Snickers! You gotta go say hi?
When 7-year-old Snickers arrived at the Cupboards farm, everyone was very curious about him, especially the toddler Gunner.
Gunner and Snickers would just both come up to the fence, and they would just stand there, and Gunner would just pet Snickers, and Snickers would just love all the attention that Gunner was giving him. He was looking for you?
The donkeys straight away took to their son, and a sweet bond was formed.
It was just so cute to see Gunner's excitement to anytime Snickers would come.
Hey, Snickers.
Gunner always has to make sure that Snickers has his grain, because we always feed the ladies their grain, and Snickers has to have his grain. It's a special brush for his hair. Yeah. He learns a lot of responsibility, which is so nice. And he passes that on to his little sister because she sees how much he enjoys doing it.
Now, good friends, the donkey keeps watch over his young charge like a protective big brother.
I just love watching their excitement, the excitement of the kids getting to see their animals and taking care of them. That's probably my favorite thing.
Does Snickers have a heart?
Yeah, Snickers has a heart.
Regularly posting updates on their social media, Damaris is told the pair's friendship brightens people's day.
A lot of people say that they will come to our page first thing in the morning just to get a smile on their face.
It's a win-win situation, with Snickers finding a happy home abundant with cuddles and treats, and 3-year-old Gunner gaining a trusted companion.
Now, a story like that really does put a smile on my face.
Yeah, well, everyone needs a Snickers in their lives.
Yeah, and in other news, a 170-carat pink diamond discovered in Angola may be the largest such gemstone found in 300 years. Angola's mines are among the world's top 10 producers of diamonds. Only 1 in 10,000 diamonds are colored, and only 1 in every 100 diamonds is greater than about 11 carats in size. Lucapa Diamond Company says 170 carat is extremely rare. The pink gemstone is expected to be auctioned by the Angolan State Diamond Marketing Company, but they didn't give an estimate of its worth because the diamond is still being examined and valued. So how much do you think it would cost, Evelyn, one of those?
I have no idea. It must be tens of millions.
Well, there are large colored diamonds that have fetched record high prices in auctions in recent years. For example, last April, a 15-carat blue diamond sold for about $57 million at auction in Sotheby's in Hong Kong. Angola's biggest diamond was a 404-carat stone, and it sold for $16 million.
Well, that's fine. I'll just admire them from a distance then.
Window shopping, right?
Exactly. That's all for today's program. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a great day. I'm Evelyn Lee.
And I'm Kevin Hogan.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Did you know YouTube only keeps selected videos on its platform? So if you want to make sure you get the full picture, just subscribe to our newsletter. Go to newsletter.ntd.com and sign up. It's free.